Highline is more than schools. It's people. Students, educators, leaders, families, and neighbors, each with a story to tell. These are our people, and these are our stories. Welcome to the Promise Podcast, where we share how the Highline Promise comes to life. Every student is known by name, strength, and need, and graduates prepare for the future they choose. I'm your host, Superintendent Ivan Duran. All right, thank you for being here today. There's another episode of the Promise Podcast. Today, we welcome an Evergreen High School student to the podcast. Please introduce yourself, your name, grade, and how you're connected to Highline.
Yeah, my name is Sophia Tua'ua. I go to Evergreen High School, and I'm also a dual enrollment student, so I also do Running Start. And I've been in the Highline district ever since I was in kindergarten.
Oh, wow. What schools did you go to here at Highline?
I started at Shorewood Elementary, and then I ended up going to Sylvester Middle School, and I ended up going to Evergreen.
Great. And then you're part of the Running Start program now. So what college are you attending?
I attend South Seattle.
Okay, great. And what are you working on right now?
I'm working on my AA degree, specifically in business, and I'm set to get that in June.
That's great. Well, our promise here in Highline is to know every student by name, strength, and needs so they graduate prepared for the future they choose. So have you started thinking about that future that you're choosing? Have you named what you want to do already? Or
Yeah, I recently got into UW and specifically the Foster School of Business. And after attending an admitted students day fair, I think it's been really awesome to see all my options. So right now, my major is business administration, but I'm considering dual majoring in supply chain management and business administration.
fabulous. Well, congratulations to you, number one. And that whole supply chain, especially here in the Pacific Northwest and the maritime industry, is a huge factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also have another Evergreen. So if you know Jeffrey Nguyen,
Oh yeah, of course I
graduated
remember.
last year, he's attending UW's Foster School of Business. So
Yeah.
you'll have somebody to work with and collaborate, and hopefully you learn some of the tricks and ropes to getting through school.
Yeah, for sure. For
That's great.
sure.
Well, good. Well, I wanted to have you on our podcast because you're also a member of the Superintendent Student Leadership Team. And this is a group that I use for advisory purposes. And we've been doing a lot of work, related to smartphone policies and other concerns that students have in our district. But first, can you just talk about what made you want to be part of a Superintendent Student Leadership Team?
I think the SSLT has allowed me to express a lot of the concerns that I've had at school that I felt like my voice wasn't necessarily amplified as much as I'd like it to be. I think here it's very easy to make a very sudden change and feel like you're making an impact on not only your school, but the district overall. And it's always fun to collaborate with, like-minded people, like they bring a variety of ideas to the table, and you have students from all over the district, which is really, really cool. I've met students from Maritime. That's pretty rare because Maritime's pretty out there in Des Moines. It's just nice to be with a variety of people that like to change our school for the good.
That's great. So we've been working on, putting together a proposal recommendation to our school board around smartphone policy. So would you just be willing to share a little bit of insights? I know you've been front and center on some of those conversations, and we recently had a meeting where we were preparing for our presentation to the school board, but you're just willing to share a little bit about your perspective and what you learned up on that up to this point.
Yeah, of course. Recently we inducted a smartphone policy across the district, although it looks different across the district, which is one of the biggest problems that we've brought up in the SSLT meetings concerning the cell phone policy. But as of right now, it's no phone use during class time, and the ways in which other teachers impose it and like the lack of uniformity across that rule makes it so that implementing that rule and making sure students actually follow it makes it a little difficult. So in the SSLT, we go over how can we fairly implement this rule, but make sure that it's done equally, if that makes sense. So that one teacher says like, oh, you can have your phone, and then one teacher says it doesn't, kind of undermines the entire point of the rule. So it just talks about uniformity, making sure it's fair, making sure there are ways to get ways around it in case you need a phone for a medical reason. We also talk about at-home communication, like making sure that there's an understanding with parents that there are times in which students can use their phones at school and times in which you can't, and also emergency procedures with phones.
That's right. Well, I appreciate all your contributions and work on the leadership team. We'll be doing a presentation to our school board in early June and providing those recommendations to the school board, and then they'll take it to there. They have until 2030 to actually put together a district-wide policy. But I know that consistency, ensuring that there's an education component to it's going to be really important. So again, just thank you for your work on that. And I look forward to seeing you talk and work with our board here in the near future. All right. Well, as you know, this podcast is all about our promise. We've already stated it in terms of what it is. But when you think about our promise, how do you see the Highline Promise come to life in your own experience as a student?
Specifically at Evergreen, I really see the promise come through in the teacher-student relationships. What I've seen specifically at my school is I've seen that teachers really go the extra mile to make sure that they cater to each student's needs in ways that it's very personalized. And I feel as though a lot of students know a teacher that they can rely on and they go to for, recommendations on what to do outside of school, even like in their careers at home. There's always someone has that they can rely on. And I think it really comes from teachers putting in the extra effort to get to know each student, get to know what teaching styles work best for them. I think it can really go all to the teachers. I
Yeah,
appreciate them for that.
that's good. And how about that part around the future they choose? How do you see that playing out in Evergreen and things that are working and ideas you would have to try to make it even better?
I think at Evergreen, we have a place called the Future Center where we have staff members who help students specifically towards their future careers, whatever that may look like. Sometimes it isn't always college, there's always the trades. And I think it's really important because they put in a lot of like job fair resources. They hold a lot of Q&As with professionals in certain fields. And I think it gives students a good gauge as to how big and how many opportunities there are out there. And even outside of the Future Center, again, most teachers do a really good job of like showing students how to balance work life, school, working, making sure they get their stuff done on time. I think there's a lot of different ways you can support students in finding careers and maintaining their careers.
Yeah, that's great. I love that it's called the Future Center. It aligns perfectly with our promise. And I really appreciate, pointing out that, yeah, college university may not be for everybody, but ensuring that students have some other type of education beyond the high school diploma is going to be so important for the future. So I really appreciate you making that point. So, okay. So as we think about, you talk about educators, and their connection to the promise and how they support students and how important that Future Center is. So make it a little personal here. So who has inspired or supported you along your journey here in Highline?
Specifically, there's a teacher at Evergreen named Miss Theodora Rosales, and she has honestly helped me throughout my entire high school career. I met her as a freshman because she was my advisor, and I really do think that she has been the one teacher to really help me along the way. She teaches Spanish, but she does a lot more than teach Spanish. She really provides for her students. She knows a lot of them very well. There are a lot of students like me out there that not rely on Miss Eater, I would say, but really go to her for advice, for school, helping out again, like for careers. She's just very well rounded. She's a really good person. She's very sweet.
Well, it's good to hear. I think our educators do an amazing job of supporting our students. So when you think about the future for yourself, for your peers, or your community, what gives you hope these days?
Honestly, I think it's just looking at my own high school. There are so many inspiring people out there, specifically at Evergreen. There's a lot of hidden talent, I think, that as we, get more resources, as we continue to improve, I think a lot of them will get to shine and, have a really successful careers in whatever they choose. But that Evergreen is a very diverse school. That's something I can appreciate a lot about it. And there's so many cultures and so many lived experiences that I think are worth bringing to the table. That's what I appreciate about Evergreen. And I honestly think that seeing everyone reflect themselves in their extracurriculars, that's really inspiring too.
That's great. So I know you're going to Running Stars here, not at Evergreen full time, but we passed a bond in 2022. Thank our community for that. But what is having that new building meant for students, staff, and the community as a whole? Because it rivals any of our local colleges right now. It's such a beautiful building. But what has it meant to the community and the students?
I think, well, for one, the community, I think it brought way more community members out than the previous school. I've noticed, I'm on the Evergreen field a lot, and I've noticed, a lot of community members walking around, walking their dogs. I think it's great having that field open to the community. I think we get a lot more engagement that way with this building. But with the students and the staff, I think it was just an overwhelming like shock as to just how amazing our equipment was. I have a photography class right now, and the cameras we have are insane in my opinion, and we have all these new things that we could have only dreamt of a few years ago. And it really directly impacts the students' education. I think there are a few rules that they're implementing as well that are helping students really stay on track and manage their resources wisely.
That's great. Yeah, I think with both Evergreen and Tyee, we were really intentional around not only just creating this new, beautiful building for our students, but also ensuring that the programming, the educational experience was going to shift also. And I think both schools are just doing amazing jobs. I think our schools have really taken on this idea of secondary school redesign to think differently around how our students are educated, because it does make a difference, and that learning environment matters. So
It
beautiful
does.
space. Okay, well, what's one dream you have for yourself?
For myself, I'd like to be successful to the point where I can give back to my community. And I see that a lot at Evergreen, actually. I see a lot of returning students become staff members, and I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I see that really often, and I'd really like to just continue to pour into the talent at Evergreen. Of course, I'd ideally have my own career, like, outside of education, but if there's any way I can maybe financially help out in a way, like, or be involved in, community things like helping pass bonds, I'd be happy to do that. Or be part of maybe, like, what my mom's doing, the parent board, that'd be great too.
That's right.
Just any kind of community engagement.
Mhm. Yeah, your mom's been part of our family action committee for a number of years and a lot of meaning, but I have no doubt you're going to be successful. So we'll have to make sure and keep in touch with you. So when we need some additional support for, community, we'll reach back out to you. But it'd be wonderful to have you come back to the community and support that. I really appreciate that. Also, is I think sometimes there's a belief that people need to leave their community, in order to go and have different experiences. And I do think that's important, especially for college and other things. But coming back and giving to your community is such a gift that is a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to have in the future.
100%.
Yeah, very good. Okay, well, we're going to take this. You can take this a lot of different directions, but what's something you're reading, watching, or listening to right now that you would recommend to our listeners?
I was really excited for this question. There was a book called How to Get to Know a Person, and the full title has something to do with, like, the art of empathy or something like that, and it explores morality education. I think that's a good way to put it. The author, David Brooks, he goes through how empathy and morality are literally the underliers, like what supports our communities and society as a whole, but it's not really focused on in education. I think that's important to talk about. Something that stuck with me is that the author said that we're going through a moral crisis. How there's a shortage in social skills, communication, empathy, morality, and how social media contributes to that, which is what we spoke about with the cell phone policy of the SSLT. But I think it's really eye-opening. It's like a guideline almost on how to tackle a lot of things that are very difficult, but are very common, like how to help someone out through grief, how to understand each other, how to empathize with one another. It's really interesting.
That's great. And this is a book you're reading just on your own, correct? Not
Yeah.
a course requirement?
No.
That's fabulous. I think that's a wonderful book, and definitely think that in our society right now, there's a lot of question around morality and what we're doing, in different places, especially around the world and even here within our country. So that's going to be a valuable tool and resource for you to keep in hand, especially as you move forward in your business, plans and your learning that's going to be having up at the UW. So really great for that. So thank you for sharing that. We've had a lot of history shared from people who have read books. We've even had some Games of Thrones. People watch Games of Thrones. So you're bringing a whole nother perspective now. And I really value that also. So thank you. That's it for this episode of the Promise Podcast and the final episode of our first season. This season, we've had the chance to share stories from the incredible people who make Highline what it is. We're taking a short break for the summer, and we will be back in September for Season 2 and more stories from across our Highline community. These stories remind us that Highline is built by people, students, staff, families, and community members, each making the promise real in their own way. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. I'm your host, Dr. Ivan Duran. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you soon.